Welcome to Impact Pasadena. I'm delighted to have as my guest today LA County Supervisor Kathryn Barger. Welcome, Kathryn. Thank you for coming back to visit us.
Thank you. It's great to be back. We've got some important issues to discuss.
We sure do. And in an earlier segment today, we were talking about these very knotty and troubling issues of homelessness, mental health that we're experiencing in LA County, and the work that you and the supervisors are doing to try to address these problems. And as you were saying, it's not just a funding issue, it's almost a cultural issue that we have to pay attention to as a society. So we solved all those problems in the earlier segment.
Yeah, well, and you've given me a to-do list, so I'm ready to go. I'm rolling up my sleeves.
I know you are. I think you were doing it before I even raised it today. But you know, there are other important responsibilities that you have in the county. We have elections coming up. Actually, we've got a big election in March where a lot of the local and county issues are going to be on the ballot, a lot of candidates.
So I've heard.
Yes. But the voting in America has actually been under some scrutiny lately because of you know, foreign interference, issues about registration, voter fraud, things like that. So it's a big topic, and I know that the county is addressing that in a number of ways to modernize and provide increased security for our elections, which are so important to our democracy. So could you talk a little bit about what the county's been doing in that regard?
Sure. Well, backing up, you know, I'm a little disheartened by the fact that people do not have faith and confidence in the voting system. Yep. And the voting system that we're rolling out in the next election is entirely different than the one in the last election. The reason why I bring that up is in the last election, as you'll recall, there was a little bit of a hiccup by our registrar recorder who did not properly print out the voter registration list, so people would go and present themselves to vote and their name wasn't on it. And so we have fixed that problem, and that was a problem between the county and the state as it relates to how we ran the voter registration list.
And just to be clear, the registrar is a county department, and so they handle the elections locally for those.
Exactly. The registrar recorder handles the elections, all the vital records, marriage license, death certificates, birth. But this truly is I think first and foremost, their largest role. And throughout the state, we are using a new voting system, and that is one where gone are the days where you had to rush home to your you know, residence city and vote. If I'm in Long Beach and I'm a registered voter in Pasadena, there will be designated locations where you can go in and vote on a machine. And then you get a little receipt that shows that you voted, and you can do this 11 days, up to 11 days prior to the election. That's a significant change, but with that comes a lot of angst among people who just do not trust our system. And we've grilled the registrar recorder, Dean Logan, to make sure that he's ready. I have concerns, and you know, I think some of my colleagues have raised those concerns as well, because it's about the integrity of the voting system.
Right.
And you know, the interference issue, obviously from the last election, truly is something that's on people's minds. Here in LA County, we've been assured that that was not the case and is not the case. But when you go to a computer system, I mean, how many times you turn on the TV each week and you hear a story about some system being compromised? We're told that our security system in place is going to protect us, but you know, I think we always need to be vigilant on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues that you hear talked about is the hard copy issue in terms of voting. Where you come down on that? What's the decision been on that?
You mean you mean to get the receipt and have that be the hard copy?
Well, that there's some printed record of voting.
Right.
So if there's a dispute.
And we've had these discussions, or I have, with the registrar recorder. My office has. Yeah. I know there are individuals that like being able to see themselves fill out the ballot and then put it in the. With this system, you're not going to. At the fair, we had a booth set up where people could go and touch, and all you get is a receipt showing that you voted. And unfortunately, this system is not set up. This was a state-driven, you know, contract that we did so that it could be. Across the board for all municipalities, but I don't see that happening as it relates to people being able to see their vote unless you do a permanent registered absentee ballot, which is what I am. And I did that from the days of when I was a policy wonk and knew that I may not be able to get back to vote. So I'm a permanent registered absentee ballot voter, and with that I fill out my own sheet. But the current system, the way it's set up, will not allow you to get a printout of exactly who you voted for.
Well,
but you can check it. I mean, it's one of those where, and we've been having test sites so that people can go and experience it. You clearly see who you're voting for.
Yeah.
But the question, and then at the end, it goes through just to make sure that each one that you push is who you voted for. That's what you wanted.
Yep.
But then once you send it in, people say they want to see that printout, and we don't have the ability to do that.
You know, I come down on the side of the improvements and the modernization on this. I mean, I go to the bank, and I rarely write checks. I go to the ATM. Everything is electronic. I look at the records. Now I have to check them and make sure and all that. But you know, at a certain point where we really don't have a lot of alternatives, we have an automated society, and it is hopefully what this will do, and I like the extension to 11 days, is it'll increase the voter participation, because we honestly, compared to other countries, we have an abysmal record of voter participation.
We do.
And it's terrible.
And you dated yourself, because now you don't use an ATM, you use your iPhone to just go like this. I was watching someone do that at the market. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And they've got their credit card downloaded on their iPhone.
I'm always dating myself.
Well, so I only learned this because I was in line thinking, what are they doing with their iPhone?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, when you look at our vote, and I'm hoping that participation goes up, but people are apathetic, and it really is too bad, because I tell people your vote truly is your power. And with that vote, you can change the course of whether it be local, state, or federal. Yeah. In California, we've moved up our voting to March instead of June, in part to be more relevant as it relates to the discussions taking place on the presidential races. But that is a powerful tool for people to use. Yeah. So we're hoping that this will increase participation.
My father worked for John Kennedy, and one of his favorite sayings is that one person can make a difference. And I was a child, so I thought, well, that sounds good. But I've seen it through my work and my career that one person who's on fire about a particular issue or who wants to participate, that's the great thing about the country. You know, I've really seen this, how it works. And you're an example.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I think that that is a really great thing for people to know, is that their voice can make the difference between an election. And they may not feel that way, but trust me on this, that is the case. Well,
the last presidential election was decided by about 100,000 votes, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. And, you know, those are all individuals who've made decisions. So,
but now, you need to have someone come in and give an overview on electoral votes versus, popular vote, because we have this debate, and you're absolutely right. I mean, those votes could have changed the number of electoral college votes, and
so that's our system.
That's our system.
Yeah.
And like it or not, it's the way it's been since before I was born, before you were born, when our forefathers decided to put it together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So the voting centers. This is exciting. I know at PCC we're going to have a voting center on campus.
And thank you for that.
And so it's so convenient. And also the absentee ballot. Mm-hmm. So how did that voting center thing work? Because I know that how do you decide where you're going to put these, and how that will really work? So I guess that's a question in your mind. We'll have to see.
Well, I mean, yeah, the registrar recorder went out and canvassed all of the county to find the best locations, and locations that were convenient for individuals, and locations where you had high population users.
Yeah.
And that didn't make any sense, but you know what I mean, where people hang out.
Yeah.
And PCC would obviously be one of those, because that's you've got every walk of life walking in there to study.
Right.
But we really did do community engagement in order to determine where these are going to be placed, and it's usually at community centers or at locations where you have people congregating.
So you're at work in Pasadena or Palmdale, Lancaster or Palmdale, and you can go around the corner for any time during the day for 11 days, So, Mr. and Mrs. Voter,
Yeah.
you got no excuse anymore. You can do absentee. There's so many ways to vote, and you're going to trust the system because there's a lot of diligent work behind that. So.
Yeah, I really do tell people that I know there's voter fatigue as it relates to the number of things on the ballot,
Yeah.
the propositions and all.
Yeah.
But it's so important for people to get engaged.
Yeah. So we're dealing with difficult topics today, I know, but another one that's difficult is the incumbent sheriff, who I know was supported by a lot of people, and a lot of political folks felt that. Well, look, let me say honestly, I think a lot of people felt they were sold a bill of goods by this guy, and they've been very disappointed in his performance, and I hear this all the time. And I know that he is I don't know if he's an employee of the county, he's an elected official, but you have some supervision and oversight over his department. And in a number of ways, he's disappointed, let me put that. And I'm being very blunt here, but
I feel it.
I'm reflecting what I hear about it. So where are you? You've been quoted as saying that there's a lack of trust between the supervisors and the sheriff, and this is such a vital function. So what are we gonna do about this issue?
So just for point of clarification,
Yeah.
the oversight that we, the board, have over the sheriff is his budget, which clearly is an important component to overseeing or of operating the sheriff's budget.
Yeah.
And this board has not taken away any money from the sheriff. We are very supportive of law enforcement as a whole. And so the financial side, the board has fulfilled their part of it. Now, does he and any other department head want more money? Of course,
Yeah.
and I get it.
Yeah.
As it relates to the trust, we got off to a rocky start. There's no question about it, and it had to do with rehiring of former deputies. I've told him we can agree to disagree on that. The courts are going to see that one through, that case. But we've got a lot of work to do. We've got the issue of body cameras. We've got the issue of recruitment. We've got the issues as it relates to, just overall ensuring that our residents in LA County are protected. And I have said that, trust is earned, and on both sides. And the fact that he maintains that because I didn't endorse him means I'm not going to support him. Nothing could be further from the truth. When I ran for office, there were people that didn't endorse me, but they are very much a part of who I talk to, because that's my job. And I do not have anything but respect for the office of the sheriff. And my goal is to work with him to make sure that things happen. I mean, up in Altadena right now, we are working on issues regarding the sheriff's station. La Crescenta, same thing. We're building a new sheriff's station up in Santa Clarita. My goal is for these men and women that are out there, the front lines, is to make sure they get the resources they need to do their job, and the training, and so, I can set aside all the political differences we have,
Yeah.
for the greater good of the community. One of the areas that we both agree on is the jail. We need to rebuild Men's Central Jail. So the question is, how do we do it together? One voice. If we do not speak with one voice, we are marginalized. We need to bring forward a plan that's going to be holistic as it relates to how we deal with those coming into our jail, taking into mind that diversion, which means that individuals that don't need to be in the jail will be placed in the community in a diversion program. But we have an opportunity to build a jail that's going to address those with mental illness that cannot be out on the street or can't be in a diversion program.
I hope what you're saying, and I think I'm hearing it right, is that even though there are political differences and there's some disappointment in his early performance, that this is not going to impact terribly the function of the department, and that you will be able to work together in some of these important issues.
I've made that commitment. For anyone that knows me, I turn the cheek, and I can turn a couple of times. I mean, and I always say, do not let my kindness be mistaken for weakness. But at the same time, he was elected by the people, and I was elected by the people, and The people elected me to do my job, and they elected him to do his job. There are those that are disappointed. He got off to a rocky start, but I can tell you that he is a sheriff, and he comes from the ranks. He's supported by many on the rank and file, and we have a job to do. And we can't take our eye off the ball.
Do you? I don't want you to speak for them, but do you believe that your colleagues share that view, that this will not be an impediment going forward?
I don't think they stay up nights worrying about it.
Okay.
I just don't. I believe that my colleagues and I, on Tuesday we supported and provided the funding for cameras that are vital to the Sheriff's Department without a discussion. They need them. We'll get them. So I don't think any of them are staying up nights worrying about this. We look at what's in front of us and we act accordingly.
Okay. On the body cams, do you see any, is there any distance between you and the sheriff, between the supervisor and the sheriff in terms of the usage of the cameras? I mean, how much, when do you have to turn them on, these kind of issues? Because that gets to be an issue when you have certain incidents.
Well, yeah, and this is an issue that I feel very strongly about. In full disclosure, I'm married to a retired sheriff's deputy, but I've talked to LAPD, I've talked to other law enforcement agencies, and I've talked to the Sheriff's Department, the people that are on the line. And I personally believe that they should be allowed to review any tapes that are provided in the case of a shooting, or before they write the report. And that's really the question: is do you make them write the report and then they can review the tape? I know, just for me, if I've been in a situation where it's been traumatic, I don't always remember all the facts in line, and I think it's important for us to get those facts straight. They can't change their story. I mean, the film is going to speak for itself, but I think it's important to give them that opportunity. That's one of the issues that's been debated, and I think it's the right decision to allow them to review that. In other instances, I think that it's up to the individual department, in this case sheriff, to determine what other set of protocols are going to be in place. I really do believe, for the protection of the public and for law enforcement, it's important to have these body cameras. And by the way, it's not going to just be for those on the street, it's going to be for the individuals in the jails as well.
I think Pasadena has wrestled with this for a number of years, their department, and it seems to me, as an outsider, that they've come up with some pretty good solutions about the usage of this, and they've been more forthcoming and transparent about releasing in the case of shootings. So I think there's some good precedent for it.
I think it's important, and again, there have been days where, and I speaking for myself, where I've driven home, and I'm thinking, when did I don't even remember stopping at the stoplight. I'm like, wow, how did I? Because I'm just so in another world. Yeah, and I'm oversimplifying it for sheriffs, but when you're involved in a shooting, your adrenaline, it's important to get the facts straight. And now I'm looking at it from a liability standpoint too. If you forget to dot the I or cross the T, that can be used against you in a court of law, even though it has no bearing on the facts behind the case. So it's important for us to get it right, for the protection of the public, and also for the county and for the taxpayer.
Absolutely. Well, let's shift to another topic, which is transportation. And that's always something that you hear about as elected officials. But boy, I see the Gold Line and I see some of the other metro lines, and they're used. We see them full up. I mean, I lived in New York and went to college there, and I know about the crammed subways, but in a way that's a success story. If people are having to stand on the way home to the subway, that means that something's working well. But we're going to extend the Gold Line, I believe, and I know I'm not familiar with what's going on in the Antelope Valley with transportation, but I'd like to hear your take on overall transportation issues for the county, and then some specifically in terms of our district.
Well, we live in exciting times, and to your point about in New York, people stand, and I've ridden the subway, and that's just the way of life here. People are not used to it, so therefore it's like, put more cars in. And I get it. And we are extending the Gold Line, and the Gold Line is going to be extended out ideally to Montclair, but we're having some issues with San Bernardino County and their funding, but all the way to the LA County line. My goal is to get it all the way to the Ontario Airport. Wouldn't that be great to be able to get on a train here in Pasadena and take it out to Ontario Airport?
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that is the goal, but San Bernardino County has to come to the table, and I don't know where they are on that. But as it relates to LA County, we are building the infrastructure. The Gold Line has faced challenges recently with having to re-electrify the lines over here in Pasadena. We had something happen, but they've been fixed. People have responded very positively to it. The Expo Line, which now you can take down to the beach, is in play. We're building a connector downtown so that people that want to leave Pasadena to go to the USC games only transfer once, rather than having to go to Union Station transfer, go to 7th transfer, and then get there. So we are building a connector downtown, which is really going to ease the ability to get not only to USC, but also all the way down to Santa Monica with one transfer. Exciting times, exciting times. Up in the Antelope Valley, equally as exciting, because I'm working to have better use of the Metrolink, which means dual tracking. Right now we only have one track, we share it with freight. Do 2 tracks, make more frequent trips, but also connect up in Palmdale a train that will be a high-speed rail that will go from Palmdale to Victorville, and then Victorville straight up to Vegas. You'll be able to get from Union Station to Vegas in about 3.5 to 4 hours.
Oh.
And the
so you can lose money a lot easier.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's a whole nother issue. But you know, this has been something that's been studied. Virgin Brightline, and Virgin as in Virgin Atlantic, the Branson has invested, and Brightline's out of Florida, and they have a high-speed rail down there. They are all in. The state just announced that they would allow about a $300 million bonds. And it's not going to be government money, but it helps them to borrow against. This is an exciting time, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But for the people in the Antelope Valley that aren't going to be going to Vegas, that need to come downtown, our focus is in getting quality Metrolink service. There's parts of the Metrolink right now that I can jog faster than the train going up the hill because of the fact that it's windy. We need to straighten the tracks rather than get the high-speed rail coming down from San Francisco to LA. They need to give us some money to invest in our existing rail, straighten it out, electrify it, and let us do our job here to give people a mode of transportation they can depend upon from the Antelope Valley to down below, and by the way, from down below up to the Antelope Valley.
What about LAX? Is that in your bailiwick? I mean, that, as a frequent flyer, that's such a frustrating thing because I can take the metro, but I don't do that, so I don't really know what the deal is. But it seems like every other airport that I've been to that I think is efficient has some kind of rail system to get you out of the airport and on your way.
I agree, and actually I remember when I was back in D.C. meeting with the Secretary of Transportation under Obama. He was a former mayor of Charlotte. And when he heard I was from LA County, he shook his head and he said, "Do you know that you're the only major county city that does not have rail connecting to an airport?" And I did not know that.
LA.
And we're LA. So the good news is we're doing that. The bad news is people hate going to LAX because of all the construction. But we are both looking at providing a people mover that'll get you into the airport, connecting you from the the Green Line to the airport, but we're also bringing in a system where right now to go to get your rental car, you practically drive to, I don't know where it is, it's way the heck out there. So they're modernizing that as well and bringing LAX up to modern day. And when I say modern day, when you go to airports throughout this country, people always say, why can't LAX be like that? To the credit of LAWA, LA World Airports, which is under the jurisdiction of LA City, and to the credit of Mark Ridley Thomas, whose district the airport is in, and Mayor Garcetti, we are actually investing a lot of money in making that happen. And I'm proud to be a partner with them. While it's not in my district, I use that airport and I'm all in and support them. But I ask people to be patient. I just flew out of there and it was a pain in the neck.
It is.
But be patient because the end is going to justify the means.
What about self-driving vehicles, trucks, for example? I know that's going to impact us in the future. What's the county's involvement there?
Well, the counties that we're watching very closely right now, not a direct impact, but when you talk about issues like the 710 doing over the tunnel, one of the things I've said is that these autonomous cars are going to be a game changer. And people say it's never going to happen. Well, I remember as a little girl hearing my parents say that anyone using a card, putting it in a machine, is never going to use it to pull out money.
Right.
And now ATMs are the wave of the future, and now it's gone on to the iPhones using it on. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is, don't underestimate technology.
Right.
It is only a matter of time. And the goods movement issue is going to be probably one of the first places you're going to see it hit, because you're going to have dedicated lanes, and I know that some of my colleagues have talked about that on the 710 freeway, a dedicated lane that will be for autonomous trucks that are moving, that are driverless trucks that are moving up and down the 710 with goods movement. It is going to be a game changer that relates to traffic congestion, and even in terms of how we do freights movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the troubling things is we really don't know what the impact is going to be. I know there have been studies on it, but it may have an economic impact too. In some ways positive, in some ways negative. You got a lot of truckers who are going to be looking at, are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also in terms of the light rail and the other things, one of the things that we looked at the college was, do we need parking spaces anymore? Because everybody's going to have, and we decided that this is going to happen over a period of time and not overnight, and we shouldn't tear down our parking lots and build new buildings or something.
Well, and even beyond that, I mean, you know, I don't know that the driverless car is going to necessarily address that, because you still got to put the car somewhere. But I think that our infrastructure relates to the investment we're doing for the 28 Olympics is going to be a game changer. And I say it's going to be for the next generation, because there are young people that do not want to depend upon a car. It's a hassle.
Yeah.
And you've seen that with Uber and Lyft and the way they've taken off. So I think the goal is always to get people out of their car. I try to walk as much as I can, and I lately have not been successful in doing that, but one of the ways that I incorporated that into my day was by taking the Gold Line to and from work. You know, we've got to think outside the box.
Yeah. Well, you know, with all the challenges and everything, I get a sense that you're really enjoying what you're doing here. I know as a public servant, elected official, a lot of the challenges are actually kind of fun to be working on. Is that my sense?
No,
or would you rather be down in the Caribbean sipping a Mai Tai?
No. I have high energy, and I honestly love my job. I've been so fortunate to be elected to this seat. It has been, I'm not going to lie to you, there have been days where it's overwhelming, but they're overwhelming where I know that I'm making a difference. I am grateful every day. I don't take anything for granted. And for me, getting out in the community, and that's one of the commitments I made when I ran, was to really connect in the community and be accessible. And I feel that I'm accomplishing that. I'm honoring my word. And you know, I tell people I don't want politician to be a bad word. I want it to be a word that means that you elected somebody who really recognizes what they need to do and represent the people. Well,
I know we have an election season coming up, so some of us are busy with campaigning and all that, but that's part of the job, isn't it?
You got to earn it, and you should earn it.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I hope you'll come back soon. Keep us updated on everything that's going on in our area and in the county. And thank you for your service.
Well, and thank you for your service. You're educating our future, so thank you.
Well, yeah,
you are.
We didn't get to education and environment today, but
another time.
That'll
be.
We'll want to talk about that in another time.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Kathryn.